Hello there, world history people. Let's keep learning about the Industrial Revolution and see sort of some effects it's had on society. So, a huge thing with the Industrial Revolution is there's this new way of people deciding how to work, how to make money, how they participate in society. And originally, factory life was pretty terrible. People were working 12 to 16-hour days, you're working 6 or 7 days a week, no sick days, no medical insurance. And if an employee got hurt by a machine, the employee would have to buy a new machine. Children worked alongside adults. Children got lower pay. Children were usually given the more dangerous jobs because they were seen as expendable. Wages were ridiculously low that people could barely afford to buy their own meals and pay their rent. But by so many accounts, during the Industrial Revolution, it was bad times to be a factory worker. I've got some primary sources. We'll read about this so you can see what some of the things these people experienced were. So let's check out some pictures here of factory life 150 years ago. Oh, I gotta click this button. Yeah, here's some kids working alongside the adults. You can see they don't even have shoes on. These kids are just kind of struggling through it. Here's another kid without shoes. He's probably holding a machine while the machine is moving around. It's pretty crazy. And then the other thing, too, is even after you finished working in the factory, you'd go home to these terrible apartments called tenements. And tenements were typically just one room, and that one room was shared by like 7 or 8 people. I say they're closet-sized apartments because I have seen some friends with walk-in closets that are bigger than tenements. And back then, too, these tenements had no water, no electricity, no toilets. By all accounts, dirty, really, really tough living conditions. So here's a picture of a lady in a tenement. You can see that she's got the 2 babies, and there's their crib. It's right next to a pot of boiling water. It's really terrible safety concerns for her children, obviously. And here's some kids playing out on their fire escape. It's probably not super safe to stand on the edge like that. And here's a bunch of people sleeping in a tenement together. You see there's this guy's feet, and then another guy, and then another guy's legs in the foreground. So they're all just packed together in one room. And yeah, these people are just really roughing it out there. And then this is all the people hanging out on their balconies in one of these tenements. No, thank you. Don't want to live like that. And so I've already made this decision that I could keep showing you kids pictures of Europeans, Americans, some Japanese from 150 years ago. But I think the reality is that currently, in the year 2020, the Industrial Revolution has finally reached a lot of countries in Asia. So for the rest of this presentation, I'm going to show you a lot of pictures of what's going on right now in many Asian countries. And it's because finally farming has become more and more efficient in Asian countries. So all these former farmers, they got to go somewhere. They move to the cities, and they're working in factories. Let's check it out. Here's a bunch of Chinese girls working at a factory in Guangzhou. You can see that they're the night shift girls, so they're hanging out during the day. And then these top bunks are by people who are currently working the day shift. So they're just switching it out. And I think, if I recall this picture, I think they're like 15-year-old kids. So same age as American high schoolers. And yeah, here's a triple layer bunk. You know, probably everybody's off at work with then. And then here's some of the living conditions near some of the factory cities in China today. It's really, really big buildings. And then, yeah, why aren't people in China farming like they used to? Well, they're now getting replaced by farming machines and farming tools. So people got to do something to get a job working a factory. Yeah, this old way of life, it's going away. Farming is becoming more and more easy all over the world. And then here's in Bangladesh, a bunch of people making clothes in a factory system there. And you can see just how bored this worker is. You know, it's just really rough working on an assembly line, building stuff that you can probably never afford. Here's a bunch of people working on an assembly line as well. And there they are making clothes in Bangladesh. Okay, and then, yeah, this is just a big global theme in the world today. These are pictures of a village in Spain. every single person left the village because farming is no longer a productive thing to do there. The village is really far away from any of the big cities, so there was no economic opportunity, so people left. And I believe I recall the Spanish government was trying to sell this entire village for $1. You would still have to pay taxes on the land, though, so that's the catch there. And here's some pictures of a Japanese lady. Every single person in her village moved out. So what she does is she sews dolls to give her the impression that there's other people around and she's not as lonely. So that's actually really sad when you think about it like that. So there she is making some friends and hanging out alone in her village. But yeah, the conditions of the Industrial Revolution, there's absolutely negative effects. I mean, you get so much pollution from all this. And here's a bunch of pictures of India today. All of these are byproducts of the factory system and people building more and more stuff. So, yep, there they are hanging out in a factory, living the factory life. And the majority of power in our world was made by burning coal. So lots of environmental problems are going to result. All these new products are going to make people think of this concept called materialism, where people just want to buy more and more new stuff. And materialism will eventually encompass the entire world, creating epic amounts of waste and garbage. Ugh, so much waste and garbage. No thanks. And really, all the global pollution before the Industrial Revolution was almost negligible. There really wasn't hardly any pollution on planet Earth. But after industry happens, pollution all over the place. And also, people want more and more stuff. So this is only accelerating the pollution on planet Earth. Let's check out some of these pictures. So, I'll zoom in on this on the next slide. And here's, some people struggling through getting coal. Here's all these coal deposits all over Europe. It's one of these reasons why Europe was the center of industry for so long. And here's more coal deposits all over Europe. And yeah, it's sort of like, what world do you want to live in? This kind of factory pollution world or this animal-friendly eco world? And so, yeah, and you can see here too that by the time you get 100 years into the Industrial Revolution, you're getting 250 million tons of coal every year, when before it was just 1 ton of coal. So a whole lot more pollution's being made in the earth. And I think I might have skipped this, but yeah, check out this tiny newspaper article from 1912. So even back in 1912, people knew that they were making a lot of pollution in the world. They said that this is going to make the air a more effective blanket for the earth. It'll cause a raise in temperature. The effect may be considerable in a few centuries. Okay, we're more than 100 years now after this article was written, and this Science Notes and News article was sadly proven to be true. All right, so let's do some more. Let's do some more connecting of the past to today with this concept as well. A whole lot of trash in our world ends up in our oceans, and the Great Pacific Trash Patch is north of Hawaii. It's a whole bunch of trash that's just roaming around in the Pacific Ocean, and today it's the size of Texas. So there's a whole lot of trash hanging out in the ocean, really making life hard for our animal friends. So it's pretty sad stuff, and almost all this trash was made in factories to promote this global materialism cycle. So yeah, there's the trash patch right there. Here's a guy sort of canoeing through the trash patch. Here's a bunch of trash in Hawaii's North Beaches. I think that's a dead sea animal right there. This seal is kind of caught in all the trash. This bird's eating a bunch of bottle caps and plastic bits. And this bird's also eating ping pong balls and Coca-Cola caps. So all these byproducts of factory life, it's affecting the whole world for sure. Trash is everywhere. All right, and now let's specifically talk about one city, the city of Linfen, China. It's a city in the middle of China, and surprisingly, it's where a lot of the world's pillows, cushions, and blankets are made. It's kind of their specialization in Lin Fen. And to power all of these machines that will make our pillows and our fancy clothing stuff, Lin Fen produces tons of coal. It just burns coal, shoots it right up into the air. I mean, this is a daytime picture of Lin Fen, China today. So it's just super duper coal burning place. Here's another daytime picture. So it's just like, wow, dang, can't even see nothing. But yeah, it's the most polluted city in the world. And this city today gives you an idea of what Europe and the United States were like 150 years ago in the heyday of our Industrial Revolution. So, yep, it's a pretty bright, sunny day in Lin Fen, but can't see anything because there's so much coal and pollution in the air. And, yeah, here's another sunny day, and it's just not a nice looking place. Okay, here's people hanging out in Lin Fen. This kid probably has some breathing problems. My understanding is even if you take a full breath of air in Lin Fen, China, it's the equivalent of smoking a cigarette. So it's definitely not good for kids. Here's people covering their faces, and that's what the river looks like. It's pretty gross. Here's a bunch of trash in this river and a whole bunch of dead fish. Not good for nature, kids. Not good for nature. Okay, and now let me finish off with some more concepts related to the overall Industrial Revolution. So there's some new social classes that emerged during this time period. All this new ways of producing things, new ways of making money. If you're someone who's sort of coming up with these new ideas, if you're an inventor, you're now referred to as an entrepreneur. And if you're a very successful entrepreneur, if you make a really awesome business, and you can get so much money, you can become a tycoon. I think I would classify a tycoon as someone who has more money than they could ever possibly spend in their life. It's basically the same thing as saying a billionaire. So, yeah, these are the kind of the new upper class, the new nobility class. The bourgeoisie, that's a word for the middle class, and the working class are the poor. So these are the new systems of our society in this industrialized world. So here's the way you could sort of classify it. You got the working class, the bourgeois, and the upper class. And here's the rich people throw stuff away, the poor people take it out of the trash. Here's one of these kind of ideas of who's the rich guy on the block. And here's the platter of society. The working class hold up everyone else so that the rich can party and hang out with the king and the government. And here's this other picture, sort of like the rich are wringing out all this money from poor people in this new society. Okay, so let's focus a little more on entrepreneurs. And I think I said this a little bit in the last slide, but they're the men or women nowadays too, who are willing to take the risks and start a new business. And I've seen plenty of entrepreneurs fail. Like, it definitely is, you put your fortune and your fame on the line if you start a business and the business doesn't work out. But if the business does work out, you can be really, really successful and you can become a tycoon, make a ton of money. I mean, today the tycoons would definitely be Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, people that just have tons and tons and tons of money and who've created stuff that's really helping our world today. So a culture of limitless growth, money, and success. But there's definitely now winners and losers in this game of hardcore economics. Okay, that's the kind of pyramid of society again. And here's some rich people living up the life, and a tycoon just taking all the money. Okay, and here's a guy I like to focus on, Charles Dickens, a dude who lived during the Industrial Revolution. He wrote 3 really famous books, and you've probably at least been familiar with at least one of these. He wrote Christmas Carol, Oliver Twist, and A Tale of Two Cities. All 3 of these books concern social issues of the Industrial Revolution. Oliver Twist is really about kids working in factories, how that's kind of wrong. Christmas Carol is about this guy Ebenezer Scrooge, who doesn't care about his workers and keeps all his money for himself, but then he has a change of heart at the end. And A Tale of Two Cities sort of compares London and Paris and how the Industrial Revolution changed society very rapidly while the time he was alive. And Charles Dickens himself was a child factory worker, So he had a lot of personal things to share in his novels based on his life experience. So I think that's really interesting. Okay, and the other thing I want to end with is half of the richest people in the world today were Industrial Revolution tycoons. So there's so much money that was made back then. And it was a time when some people had everything and a whole lot of people had nothing. So even with today's factors in mind, 5 of the 10 richest people ever were people who lived 150 years ago. So pretty hardcore. Yep, captains of industry. Okay, that's it for me. Peace out.